This program contains dramatic reenactments and material that may be disturbing to some audience members. Viewer discretion is advised.
When two best friends attempt the most challenging climb of their lives,
there's always that fear, you know, that something's going to happen, something's going to go wrong.
A violent storm hits the French Alps, turning adventure into a desperate fight for survival.
I've never experienced anything like it.
In the worst weather for almost a century, they're trapped for days on a narrow ridge, with no hope of rescue.
There was now no way either of us was getting off this mountain alive.
Isolated and ravaged by frostbite.
My hands were like pieces of frozen meat.
Death is only hours away.
I just closed my eyes. That was the time I expected to die.
He's obviously going to win that.
Jamie Fisher and his best friend, Jamie Andrew, are on holiday with friends in the French Alps.
Boy, loser.
Shut up.
You didn't honestly think you were going to beat me, did you?
Since they first met at college 8 years ago, they've been inseparable, with a shared passion for mountaineering.
Jamie was much more outgoing and extreme than me, but you know, I quickly realized that he was a kindred spirit. He had an equal enthusiasm and very raw passion for the mountains.
The holiday is supposed to be a lot of R&R, snowboarding, skiing, and hanging out.
What do you reckon, Jamie? Jamie?
But on the first day, Jamie Fisher gets the itch to go climbing.
Check it out, mate.
Their ski resort is at the foot of one of the greatest climbs in the French Alps, the north face of Les Trois.
Jamie, I know, but I'm supposed to be on holiday with my girlfriend.
You're not looking. It's the north face of Les Trois we're talking about, which we agreed we'd do, huh?
The north face of Les Trois is a treacherous climb. But it's exactly the kind of challenge Jamie Fisher relishes.
What do you reckon?
Jamie was really a true mountaineer. That was his big calling in life. He often seemed to think about nothing else.
So basically, we'll overnight at Le Grand Montet in order to get an early start in the morning. 3-hour brisk walk, we're at the foot of the face.
Okay.
Jamie Fisher is determined not to let this opportunity pass. But first, he has to persuade his best friend.
We got a week of this window. Perfect weather.
A week?
A week. There's no reason why we can't tick this off. You won't even know we're gone. We'll be back before you know it.
It would have been very nice to just spend the whole week on the slopes, skiing, snowboarding, having fun, just being with our friends. But both of us knew that we had something within us deeper that was driving us to do more.
You know, you're really going to get me into trouble one of these days, Jamie.
And? Cheers.
Cheers. Salut.
Le droit.
The droite.
Once the decision was made, Jamie and I were set. We were going.
The two Jamies take the cable car to the top station, 10,000 feet up the mountain. They'll spend the night there to get a head start in the morning.
I certainly was getting very nervous about it by now. You know, even with all the experience I had under my belt, you know, you always get nervous before a big climb. And I always find I reach this stage in the night where I kind of wish that there's a big storm going to come in and I can call the whole thing off. I remember opening my eyes and seeing Jamie pacing about. He'd obviously not been able to sleep either, and he'd got up and was wandering about.
Come on, Sleeping Beauty. Time to go.
Just give me a minute, okay?
Come on, stop whinging. Get ready.
Okay, I'm up.
The next day, the two Jamies set off to begin their climb of Les Droites.
It was a long, hard trudge up the glacier. Jamie was much more up for it that morning, and I was feeling pretty ropey with the altitude and general nerves. And I could hear him singing to himself as he trudged through the snow.
Anyone ever told you got a really lovely singing voice, Jay?
Yeah, they told me I got a beautiful voice.
He could sometimes be frustrating, but, you know, he was great company.
When they arrive at the foot of the vast ice face that leads to the summit, they get their first sighting of the awesome challenge ahead.
It is a 1,000-meter unbroken face of rock and ice. So it was pretty scary, but also, you know, really got our adrenaline going, I think.
Got a coin?
Yeah. There you go.
Heads or tails?
Heads.
Tails! I'm on it.
And that moment when you're actually on the climb, it's as if all that nervous energy just disappears. It just dissolves into the sheer joy of the climbing itself.
In midwinter, the weather in the Alps can change in an instant. But today, the two men have ideal conditions for their climb.
How's it looking out there?
Great, mate! The ice is absolutely perfect!
Scaling Les Droites is a 2-day climb. And as dusk falls on the first afternoon, the two friends find a ledge to rest up for the night.
Well, mate? Yeah.
You don't expect great luxury in these circumstances. You don't expect 3-star hotels, but we were pretty happy with that.
Your room will be ready in a sec, Mr. Andrews.
Oh, thank you very much.
You know, being able to get into our sleeping bags, to get lying down, to get hot drink, that was good enough for us.
Good day, huh?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
It will crack it for sure tomorrow.
Yeah.
We were both feeling elated. We were bang on target at that stage. We were exactly halfway, which was what we'd hoped.
As dawn breaks, the two men set off on the final ascent to the summit. A sheer vertical ice face, one of the toughest climbs in the Alps.
There's no ledges on the face where you can take a break. And so it is very tiring on your calves, your calf muscle. Essentially, you're standing on your tippy toes all day. By about lunchtime on that second day, we were feeling pretty confident at that stage. We were feeling that, you know, we were going to reach the top within a few hours.
They make great progress. But 800 feet from the summit, conditions suddenly change.
those clouds, mate!
We'd been perfectly clear the 1 minute. The next minute we looked up and there were these clouds rolling over the summit ridge of the mountain. We realised that this was a pretty serious storm that was coming in. It wasn't long before the snow started falling. It just became phenomenal. It very quickly became very, very heavy indeed.
In just a matter of minutes, the two climbers have been slammed by a vicious alpine blizzard.
But we weren't too worried at this stage. You don't expect to be able to climb a mountain face like that without encountering some bad weather.
But far from blowing over, the storm rapidly intensifies.
I've never experienced anything like it. It was just piling down onto our backs and rucksacks, literally faster than we could shake it off. It was just incredible.
Then suddenly, the fresh snow triggers the thing climbers fear most: mountain avalanches.
You just have to hold onto your ice axes as tightly as possible. Just close your eyes and hope for this avalanche to pass. It was horrendous climbing in those conditions. It was just really, really, really hard.
The two friends are now clinging to the side of the mountain, knowing every step could be their last.
It became a job of survival. There were great periods of time when we couldn't see each other. It was just impossible climbing in such horrendous conditions. So it was pretty tough.
They now face a life or death decision.
Jamie! Woo! This is something, huh? Yeah, but what do we do?
Abandoning their climb would mean descending the 3,000 feet of treacherous ice below them.
To attempt to descend the very difficult and dangerous climbing that we'd done already in those conditions had been, almost suicidal.
Not going down in this, mate! Head for the closest pass, near the summit!
Their only option is to keep on climbing through the blizzard.
If we could reach the summit ridge, we would be safe from the avalanches. We could dig ourselves in and then just wait for the storm to pass.
The two friends battle on, but it's desperately slow progress.
By the time it was starting to get dark, suddenly one of the bolts on my right ice axe started to work loose.
Jamie needs both of his axes. They're his only way of scaling the ice face. He has to carry on and pray the axe head won't come off.
We were really reduced to a snail's pace now. The climbing was so much more arduous and fatiguing and, of course, frightening.
In the raging blizzard, and with a broken ice axe, the two Jamies know that what began as an exciting adventure has turned into a potentially deadly climb.
I was beginning to think that we would never reach the top. It just seemed to be going on and on forever. But it was Jamie who suddenly let out this yell.
A boat somewhere!
And I knew from his tone that this was it. He'd made it. He was at the top. suddenly both there we were on the top, on the summit ridge. And that was great. That was fantastic.
At the summit, the two Jamies can finally rest and wait for the storm to subside. But the ridge is just a sliver of ice, 3 feet wide by 5 feet long, with sheer drops of over 1,000 feet on either side.
The place where we arrived was really a knife edge of snow and ice.
Jesus Christ, Jamie, we can't stay here!
It'll be fine! It's only for the night! The storm can't keep up!
We were completely exposed to the elements. There was no protection whatsoever from the snow and from the wind and from these massive drops to either side of us. So it was a pretty hair-raising place to have to spend the night.
They get into their bivvies, water and windproof bags used for emergency shelter. It's their only protection from the storm.
We'd eaten most of the food that we'd brought with us. We still had a couple of packets of biscuits and some chocolate bars. That's basically what we had left. Our more immediate concern was water. It was too precarious to light the stove, to melt snow for water.
They'll only survive a short time without water. Their hope is that the storm will pass.
Jamie and I had been on many mountaineering adventures together, but this was looking like being the most frightening to date.
All the two men can do is hunker down, knowing that one careless move will send them 1,000 feet to their deaths.
Now it was just a case of surviving the night and waiting for the storm to pass.
But as the night wears on, far from abating, the mountain blizzard intensifies.
It did start into our heads that we couldn't survive this indefinitely. And we started to think maybe this storm's never going to pass.
By morning, there's still no let-up in the weather.
The storm, if anything, it only got worse. Because the snow is now accompanied by this powerful wind. That was bringing with it, much lower temperatures and much more unpleasant conditions.
This isn't good! What do we do?
Stay put!
What?
Wait for the storm to die down! We can't go anywhere in this!
It didn't take us long to decide that it would be lethal trying to head off down the mountain in those conditions. The same physically demanding situation as yesterday, but with very much more dangerous avalanche risk. So we were effectively trapped.
Unable to move in the sub-zero conditions, their body temperatures are beginning to drop, and they desperately need food to keep them warm.
What have you got?
What?
Food! What food have you got?
We basically had nothing left in the rucksack except for a packet of dry biscuits. Have you ever tried eating dry biscuits without liquid? You just simply can't.
But it's too windy to light their stove and melt ice for water.
And you can't just eat the snow. If you try, you'd soon just chill yourself down completely. It just doesn't work. It's ironic, really, that we were completely surrounded by snow, and yet we had nothing to drink.
Hour after hour, the blizzard batters the two climbers, and they discuss what should be their next move.
I don't want to rescue!
Are you kidding me?
Think what our mates will say if we get rescued! I don't want a rescue!
You crazy? What are we going to say to the copter pilot, Jamie? Sorry, mate, we don't want to leave.
I'll have to leave my gear! I'm not leaving my gear!
I remember Jamie saying, well, we can't be rescued. If they rescue us off the mountain, we'll have to leave our kit behind, and I can't afford to lose my kit.
Well, bloody hell, Jamie, most of it's my kit anyway.
That just demonstrates how stubborn I think he was. At this stage, more than anything else, we just wanted to be off the mountain, but we were still very hopeful that we'd get down without any issues the next morning.
Down in the valley, their friends know they're missing. But in these conditions, a rescue mission is far too dangerous.
The snow carried on falling and falling and falling. And the wind blew. When we realised that we were going to be spending another night there, that was a pretty grim prospect. We were just so uncomfortable, you can't move at all.
It's the two friends' second night in the freezing cold. They've had nothing to eat or drink for 24 hours. And on their narrow ridge, less than 3 feet wide, they can't even afford the comfort of sleep.
If we'd relaxed, we'd just have slipped off this ledge and fallen off the edge of the mountain. So you have to stay awake the whole time.
By the next morning, there's still no let-up in the storm.
Hour by hour, our physical condition was deteriorating. So that pretty soon we needed to get off this mountain. We needed to get moving.
We can't keep lying here!
So what do we do?
Sometime during the early morning, Jamie said, let's just go, let's give it a go, let's try and get down.
We should try and go down! It's better than freezing!
Well, we're safe here when the weather changes.
It might never clear! Come on! Let's get out of here!
We emerged from the sleeping bags for the first time in days out into the full teeth of the gale itself.
But the blizzard winds are fiercer than they realize.
When the snow just blowing into every crevice and in every corner, you can't do anything, you just can't. You can't function.
This is crazy! Let's go back in!
We very quickly realised that this was hopeless.
With escape from the ledge impossible, the two friends now realize they have no option but to wait and hope that the weather will turn before they freeze to death.
It did start to enter our heads that we couldn't survive this indefinitely. It was difficult not to just to slip into depression and desperation.
And just when it seems things can't get any worse,
Emergency!
What?
I was just slumbering in my sleeping bag when suddenly I heard this shout from the baby bag, and I thought something terrible had happened.
Is this an emergency?
Well, I suppose so, yeah!
All of a sudden, in the middle of the morning, he remembered that he had his extra emergency reserves of a bar of Kendal mint cake. This Kendal mint cake that his granny ceremoniously gave him each year to store in his rucksack. And before I knew it, he pulled this thing out with a flourish. It was just brilliant. It was just, you know, a real high point of the day.
You can't beat a bit of Kendal mint cake, huh? Good old granny!
The sugar rush of the mint cake helps lift their spirits. It's vital they keep themselves mentally as well as physically together if they're to pull through.
We never let ourselves be overrun by morbid thoughts. You know, we always try just to keep ourselves going, keep each other buoyed up.
Oh no!
What?
At one point, Jamie looked at his watch and cursed and pointed out that he'd missed his flight home.
I missed my plane home!
Are the tickets non-refundable?
We never let ourselves be overrun by morbid thoughts. But it was difficult sometimes just to keep your mood going. The human will for survival is very, very strong, and certainly was in both of us, so we were determined. You know, there's no way we were giving up. But with every hour that passed, I think, yeah, our optimism faded.
That night, the temperature at the summit reaches -10 Fahrenheit, with the wind chill making it closer to a freezing -22.
Our physical condition was really deteriorating, and Jamie in particular I knew was really getting quite cold now.
Are you awake?
What's wrong?
I'm really cold, mate. I think we should get in one bag.
It's Jamie Fisher's first sign of vulnerability since the climb began.
Check it out, mate.
Nails!
I'm on it.
I knew that Jamie wouldn't ask for that kind of help unless he really needed it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, good idea. Let's get to your bag, it's bigger, okay? Okay.
Jamie knows his best friend is desperate, and that he must get into his sleeping bag to keep him from freezing. But on the tiny ledge, every move is racked with danger.
Okay, I'm gonna get into your bivvy, all right?
So it was really awkward trying to wriggle into this tiny bag. Both of us were slipping about all over the place and losing perches. And then suddenly,
Jamie, I'm slipping! Jamie!
Jamie!
I was sliding, and I couldn't stop myself. I tried to reach out to grab something. You're just falling in the blackness of the night. And you know, my heart was in my mouth.
Jamie is saved by his climber's rope attached to his waist. But he's now left dangling above a 3,000-foot precipice.
Jamie!
Climber!
Jesus Christ, help me, Jamie!
Calm down!
His friend can do nothing to help him.
You gotta climb the rope!
I can't do it!
You can! Keep calm! It's okay! You gotta climb up!
Jamie's only way out is to pull his own body weight back up the rope as the storm rages around him.
But the rope was cold and icy and really quite thin.
Exhausted from 3 days without food, water or sleep, every inch of the climb is torture. And halfway back up the rope,
And I remember plunging back down to where I'd started from.
Jamie!
I'm stuck, Jamie! I'm stuck!
Calm down! You just gotta climb the rope!
And so the next time, with a monumental effort, I pulled myself up this rope and landed myself with a great heave back onto the ledge. It was a big fright. But I guess I also realised that really all we had to do now was just stay where we were and survive. And eventually a rescue would be able to get us off there.
all they can do is try to keep each other warm in the minus 22-degree temperatures and pray that the storm passes.
We would spend the night just waiting for the first light of dawn, because it was only the dawn that could ever bring a hope.
But the next day, the blizzard just gets worse and worse.
As the morning came in and the storm carried on raging on, it became more and more depressing. The thought that this storm was never going to pass.
They've had nothing to drink or eat now for 72 hours. Both men are severely dehydrated. And in the Arctic conditions, Jamie Fisher is succumbing to the effects of hypothermia.
I know that we both must have had thoughts that maybe we wouldn't be making it down alive.
The two climbers are desperately weak from a lack of food and water. In order to survive, Jamie Andrew knows he can't let his friend lose hope.
Neither of us ever mentioned the possibility of not making it. We only talked about positive things.
Jamie, what's the first thing you're gonna do when you get down?
Oh no.
I'm gonna have a nice hot bath and a boat. I'm gonna have a huge pot of tea with about 20 sugars.
Sod the tea. I'm gonna have a lukewarm beer.
Good man. Good man.
The afternoon wears on. But just as it seems, they will have to spend yet another night in the blizzard.
It's starting to break. Jamie, the weather's starting to break.
I looked out, and there, for the first time in days, we could see the mountain peaks on the other side of the valley. We heard that unmistakable thud, 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 thud. And straight away, they saw us. That was just an incredible moment. We were rescued. We were down in the valley. We were having hot baths and hot meals, and all that went through our heads.
But as the helicopter attempts to hover directly overhead, it's pushed back by fierce mountain winds.
Where are they gone?
We realised what the difficulty was. It couldn't hover anywhere near us because of the massive updrafts that blew up the mountain face.
Time after time, the helicopter is forced back. Finally, the pilot manages to get within yards of the stricken men.
You know, we could literally see his face. It was really being thrown about all over the place like a toy.
Close now, come on!
At any moment, it looked like it might be dashed against the rocks on the ridge either side of where we were trapped.
But at the last moment, the pilot loses his battle with the wind and is forced to abandon the rescue.
I can't describe how gutted we were to be left there on the mountain on our own. It just felt even more lonely being there, having seen other people for the first time in days, and then just be left abandoned to our fate on the mountain again.
Thousands of feet up a mountain, without food, water or shelter. All hope of rescue is now gone. But the brief drop in the wind allows them to light the stove to melt ice for water.
It was Jamie who suggested it. I thought he was crazy trying to actually get the stove burning on this ledge between us. And that was just unbelievable. Just the first time in 3 days that would have been that any liquid had passed our lips. To have some hot, sweet tea was just incredible. And that probably saved our life night.
But the pleasure is short-lived. The end of the gas means no more water, and they are still severely dehydrated.
It was incredible that we'd survived so far, but we did begin to lose that battle for survival.
It's the worst storm in a century, and there is nowhere to escape the bitter 80-mile-an-hour winds.
But this new weather was way more severe, really. Very, very cold. That kind of wind chill, the human body just can't survive for very long at all.
As the night wears on, the temperature plummets to well below freezing.
The sleeping bags had become useless to us. The snow had got into them, made them damp, and then that damp freezes. So effectively, the sleeping bags had frozen. With every hour that passed, our optimism faded. During that night, we did begin to lose that battle for survival.
What hill are we on? What? Where are we?
Jamie was becoming more and more confused. He didn't seem to know where we were anymore.
Jamie Fisher is becoming delirious. Gripped by hypothermia, his organs are starting to shut down, and not enough blood is reaching his brain.
Come on, Jamie. You know where we are, Jamie. Tell me where we are. I don't know. I can't remember. Come on, Jamie. Come on, Jamie. Tell me where we are. Come on.
My only real memories of that day are just of desperation.
During the night, Jamie Fisher's sleeping bag has come loose. Knowing his friend needs every ounce of warmth, Jamie Andrew tries to zip it back up.
I just pulled it in, and then I realised suddenly that I couldn't move my fingers. In an instant, both hands had just frozen, solid.
His hands are frostbitten. His blood and tissue have turned to ice and are irreparably damaged.
And I remember just, in a futile kind of way, just knocking my two hands together and listening to them as they just went thunk, thunk, thunk. My hands were like pieces of frozen meat. As a mountaineer, one of your biggest fears is always going to be frostbite, because if your fingers freeze, you can't do anything for yourself. You're stuffed.
Jamie is completely paralyzed. He watches helplessly as his best friend, in the final stages of hypothermia, begins to lose his mind.
We gotta go. I gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. What are you doing? We gotta go. Jamie!
And Jamie really became quite delirious and was just sort of thrashing about all over the place.
Jamie, what are you doing? We gotta go! Jamie! Jamie, stand here!
If it wasn't for the fact that he was tied to the mountain, he probably would have fallen off.
Jesus Christ, you're gonna push us off the edge! Jamie, you're gonna push us off the edge!
I desperately tried to bring him back, to remind him, you know, what mountain we were on, what we were doing there. I soon realised that this hypothermia was taking him. And there was nothing I could do to stop it.
After 5 days, battling to stay alive on the mountain, the two climbers are now just hours from death.
There was now no way either of us was getting off this mountain alive.
His hands and feet now solid blocks of ice. Jamie Andrew is helpless to do anything to save his best friend.
Once Jamie's core temperature had dropped, his brain was no longer getting the oxygen it needed. Eventually that deliriousness gave way to unconsciousness, and ultimately he just stopped moving altogether. And when I saw that taking hold of him, I knew that this really, really was the end. That there was no hope now. And of course, having frozen hands myself, there was nothing I could do. In the end, it was Jamie who went first, and I had to witness that. But mercifully, it didn't take long. He obviously wasn't really aware of what was happening. He wasn't suffering. And I remember sitting there realising that this was the end. That it was the end for Jamie. It was the end for me too, that there was now no way either of us was getting off this mountain alive. Sometime later, and I have no idea how much later, I opened my eyes again. And the first thing that I saw was rays of sunshine as they lit up all the mountain peaks all around me. Moments later, I heard that helicopter approach. And this time I knew that somehow they were going to rescue me. Somehow they were going to get me out of there. Spinning 1,000 meters above the glacier in space in what was literally one of the most spectacular and daring rescues in the history of the Alps. I knew that I'd made it. I'd been rescued and I was going to live.
But the rescue had come too late for Jamie Fisher. His body was taken down from the mountain shortly afterwards. Jamie Andrew underwent surgery to save his life. Surgeons amputated his dead, frostbitten limbs, which were poisoning his blood.
They were very dark days indeed, those first few days after the accident. But on the other hand, I knew that this was to be the low point in my life, and now I could get on with the job of putting my life back together again.
For Jamie Andrew, years of reconstructive surgery and rehabilitation followed. But the memories of those 5 days on the ridge are never far away.
I had survived. I was a lucky one. And so I started to make up my mind that I was going to take on this challenge that had been thrown in front of me, and I was just going to treat it like the next big mountain that I had to climb. And so that's really what I've done, just taking it one step at a time. I have rebuilt my life